Well, hi there everyone. You're watching another video of Thomas and Equestria Girls Couples and Ships 20. And tonight I am going to be starting a brand new mini-series. It's a series on where I would talk about how I would adapt the Railway series books and stories that have never been adapted for the series of Thomas and Friends. And by series, I do mean TV series. So, I do intend to cover every story and book as I aforementioned earlier. But if you have suggestions on books and stories you'd like to see me cover, then I'd be more than happy to hear them. So tonight I thought on talking about how I would adapt the final book of the series for TV, aka Thomas and His Friends. But before we go into more detail, I think we should have a little talk about the history of the Railway series. The Railway series was first published in 1942, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, by the Reverend W. Awdry, who was a huge steam engine enthusiast, and the first book, The Three Railway Engines, was written, yes, and Thomas the Tank Engine was created. Sorry, the first one is unscripted, so please bear with me. The Railway series was intended to be a series of bedtime stories for children. Oh, and by the way, I know Very Old Engines isn't the first Railway series book to be ever published. It was actually The Three Railway Engines. Yes, I do have a copy of that, but I'm using different examples. Yeah, and Thomas the Tank Engine was created for his son Christopher whilst he was in bed recovering from the measles. But the Railway series never became a collection of short bedtime stories for children. Oh, no. That it would later go ahead and expand into something much more impactful and way more meaningful, the Thomas and Friends TV series. After he wrote his 26th book before retirement, his son Christopher took over with the Railway series, and it continued until 2011, meaning that the book we're going to talk about today, known as Thomas and His Friends, was coincidentally published the same year as the release of Day of the Diesels. But let's get more into it now. I just want to note before anything, at the time of making this video, I don't physically own a copy of Thomas and His Friends yet, but I am aiming to have a copy of it in future. So to stand in today, I'm going to use my 2013 Take and Play Thomas model. So, Thomas and His Friends. The book is about the Finn clergyman's centenary and Pip and Emma becoming permanent members of the North Western Railway. So, time to go over each of the stories. The first story, Thomas and the Swan, was actually adapted from an annual, and it's pretty much beat for beat from the annual story about Thomas helping an injured swan. Because I haven't heard much of it, I might try and do so in the future. The second story rather, Buffer Bashing, is about Douglas accidentally crashing through some buffers and being reprimanded by Sir Topham Hatt. I will say it is by no means a terrible story, but really, couldn't Topham have been a bit more fair with Douglas? The third story, Gordon's Fire Service, is about Gordon helping to extinguish a fire at the Peel Godred branch line, I think. You can tell me in the comment section below. And the final story, Centenary, and in any case, the final story of the entire railway series, is about James. I think, I'll try and remember, but I think it's about the tunnel getting blocked, which delays the Finn clergyman's visit. I don't know. But I have heard that these stories aren't really connected to each other, so I think we're going to make my adaptation of Thomas and his friends fix that wrong. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sit back, relax, and let's get this show on the road. So, if this book were to be published for the TV series, then that means it would have had to have come out in the CGI series. And again, it wouldn't be the first time that a railway series saga has been adapted during the CGI series. So, for Thomas and the Swan, I would have the episode take place, well, starting off with Thomas pulling into Knapford Station and Flying Scotsman pulling in and telling him about the Finn clergyman's centenary celebration is going to be happening in more than a few days. Yeah, because sadly, Pip and Emma do not exist in the TV series, so I'm going to be using a stand-in. And Thomas then becomes so excited about it that when he's on his branch line one day, he sees an injured swan in the middle of the track. He puts on his brakes just in time, and in order to add a little bit more logic, I would simply have a backstory explaining on how the swan got injured in the first place. And then the rest of the story pretty much happens beat for beat. Buffer Bashing. I would have it begin with Thomas passing by Knapford Sheds one morning whilst he's on his way to his first passenger run of the day, and he tells Donald and Douglas about his heroic deed of rescuing the swan and about the Finn clergyman's centenary coming up soon. And Donald and Douglas are happy to hear about it, but then Sir Topham Hatt shows up and Thomas continues on his way to Knapford Station, and he tells Donald that he's needed to help out on the Arsdale Railway, and Douglas decides to tag along for the journey. And whilst they're on their way back, Donald is asked to stay behind and help a bit more, but Douglas is pretty much happy taking the ballast back to Sodor. He can't stop thinking about the Finn clergyman's centenary on his way back, until it is too late. He doesn't realise he's going way too fast and he accidentally runs into a set of buffers at Knapford Station and Bob's his uncle. He's bashed the buffers and got covered in red paint. I would simply have this accident happen only once. So in that case, Douglas wouldn't be tortured too much. Douglas then goes to Sir Topham Hatt's office that evening and tells him about what happened. Sir Topham Hatt isn't cross, but he just sends Douglas to the steamworks to be repaired, and the story would end on a satisfying note. Gordon's fire service, I would simply have it open with Flying Scotsman on his way home from London, because he told Thomas he was heading off to London in the first story. And in the first story, I would simply add an explanation about swans, so it doesn't take until the second half of the episode for the plot to happen. But for Gordon's fire service, Gordon would see that Flying Scotsman had his water tender refurbished and wishes he had 2 tenders as well. But then the next day, Gordon would be travelling to Vickerstown Station. Just so you know, Vickerstown is a stand-in for the Peel Godred Station in my series. And I think we could simply have Kana, you know, the purple and yellow bullet train from All Engines Go, to take the role of the Peel Godred engine, but she would still catch Gordon's attention, making no noise. Soon Gordon would be about to leave with his passengers, but then I think we're going to have to tweak a few things about the fire scene. I would have Terence and Farmer Finney simply fill in. Farmer Finney would be alerting the station that there's a fire because Terence was pulling a tower of hay bales on his green wagon, you know, the same one that sunk in Terence Breaks the Ice from season 21. A bit too high, and they sadly got knocked over under the bridge, and because it was a hot day, they set alight. So then the station master runs to alert the Sodor Search and Rescue Centre. Yeah, I think we could have Bell and Flynn take the roles of the fire brigade in this adaptation. And the climax of the story would continue as normal until the fire is extinguished and Bell and Flynn arrive at Vickerstown Station, realise they've had a wasted journey, but the fireman, you know, the one who works with Flynn, was very proud, and Gordon is simply awarded with his medal. But because Gordon will become a recurring character for the next 10 seasons of my headcanon until it ends, I'm not going to have him retire in this one. So for the series finale of the Railway series Centenary, I would have it open with James, who is coming back from London with the Finn clergyman, because, yeah, that's why Flying Scotsman was coming to stay at Tidmouth Sheds. And, Yeah, he would be on his... It would take place during the night, and in order to have a bit more logic, I'm going to have the Finn clergyman travel in James's cab. But the next morning, every single character who has appeared in the series up to this point would be at Vickerstown Station. Edward would be asked to go and collect the party flags for the celebration, but on the way he would simply come across the tunnel where there has been a landslide. On the other side, he meets James, who explains that Mrs. Kindly had came running out of her house telling James that there had been a landslide due to heavy rains that evening, and he has been stranded there all night. But soon, it's not long before Edward and James are rescued, and then they both arrive at Vickerstown, and the Finn clergyman steps out and makes his speech, and everyone celebrates as the screen zooms up to the sky and the Thomas and Friends logo appears on screen for the final time, ending the first era of the series on a heartwarming note. So, that is how I would adapt Thomas and His Friends for TV. I think it would have worked for season 24, obviously being the final season of the show. And I know these adaptations are not perfect by any means, but I think it's the best I could do, and I am overall satisfied with every result I've made here. So, that was the video. I very much hope you guys all enjoyed it. And how would you adapt Thomas and His Friends for the TV series? Is there anything you would change about it? Or would you adapt it beat for beat? Because do tell me in the comment section below, as I'm really interested to know. And if you have any more video requests or even videos like these, like what I've just done now, that's absolutely brilliant. Leave them in the comment section below and I'll see if I can do them. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to leave me a comment, subscribe, share, thumbs up, request, and all that good stuff. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.